Product Development Will Schick, and today we are going to be painting Fourth Sister. We're going to be having some fun with her. I don't know entirely what that means, but those were my directions. So I know it means an alt scheme. We're going to just figure out something to do with this character. I think probably fun is flipping her from an evil character to a good character. So we'll paint her as if, you know, Order 66 never happened and the Jedis for some reason started a much friendlier and happier Inquisition, I guess. They probably wouldn't call it that, but whatever. We'll figure it out as we go. All right, so let's jump off this and let's get going. No oil paints today. We're just going to be using good old-fashioned acrylics. All right, so if we just determine that we're going to do kind of a more traditional Jedi flavor on the Fourth Sister here, I'm going to need to mix up a nice warm brown for my Jedi robes. So we're going to use a little of our ochre, a little bit of our red, brown, a little black in there just to create a shade. Could throw in a little blue too, actually. Using what minimal color theory I understand, blue would darken this up real nice. Grab a little bit more of this, put this over here. Clean out our brush real quick. A little bit more up here. There we go. That'll be kind of our color progression. Yellow sabers? Sure, we can do yellow sabers. I've done yellow sabers. I painted an Anakin Skywalker way back when. Our soundproofing is trying to kill me, Ann. Like it keeps flying at me off the wall. Like I don't know what Jeremy did. But that's the third time I've been attacked. I actually did an Anakin Skywalker as a Jedi Temple Guard alt scheme with yellow sabers. I think it's around the office somewhere. Summer probably stole it, let's be honest. All right, so let's just really quickly knock out our brown robes. We'll get going. It was an assassination attempt. Summer's on the other side of the wall, just like hitting it really hard to send these soundproofing bits flying. Clearly. The attempts on my life have left me scarred. All right. So let's knock out this color. Excited that everyone got to view the article on Fifth Brother, Fourth Sister today. So all the Inquisitors have been previewed. Obi-Wan Out of Hiding and Darth Vader Jedi Hunter have been previewed, so all of our Crosshair stuff coming out next month is in the wild. Seeing some wild theory crafting going on. So that's pretty good. No, I don't really have a recipe, to be honest. I keep it pretty loosey-goosey. This brush it fooled me. It looked like it was the good brush, but it's not a great brush. No, I don't really have a specific recipe, honestly. I know from working with the Chimeras quite a bit that if I want kind of the warm Jedi robe color, it's just a mixture of red, brown, and ochre, and then, you know, black and some others for flavor. But because everything's a single one-off kind of paint job, I use that to my advantage to just explore and mess around with stuff. We are going to do you, wild hair, get pulled off. I think we are going to do I don't know if the sleeves would be brown. They kind of look different, but we're going to brown coat her all the way today. Cover up that insignia a little bit. So, if you want a warm brown, always use kind of a red base. Red and yellows, obviously. If you want a cool brown, you want to use more blues and purples, maybe some greens. So, like I said, I have just enough color theory under my belt to be slightly dangerous, but only to myself. Usually I just get myself in trouble with it. What do I do when I have a brush that's fraying like that? Well, the first thing that you can do is you can try to recondition it. So a lot of the times I'll just go back to my water, and then I will use the magic substance known as human saliva, because, and everyone's like, gross, you're eating paint. I'm not eating the paint because the brush is clean by this point. But human saliva is an incredible asset when it comes to acrylic painting. It, for whatever reason, it reacts and mixes with paint in this really strange and wonderful way that water just doesn't. So it's got enough stick to it that it works really well. So if you give it like a quick, I do a quick lick. You can also just roll it. So for example, clean it off. And it's going to go to the right thing here. So if you just roll the paintbrush like that, you'll reform the tip. And if the brush is kind of older and wants to fray more often than not, you'll just have to do that more frequently. So you're going back to your water, cleaning your brush, reconditioning the tip. When you're not painting, you can get brush conditioners and soaps and all of that stuff. And if you're really, really good about brush maintenance, you can utilize those tools to maintain your brushes. There's also just the reality that most natural hair bristle brushes, like the Winsor Newtons that we use on stream, or any of the other ones that you can get anywhere, they are made of organic materials. So there's a whole lot of like natural nonsense that goes on with them. And sometimes you're going to get a really good brush, and it's going to have fantastic fibers, and it's just going to want to hold its tip forever. And sometimes you're going to get a brush that's just not as good, and it's going to wear out faster. And that's just the reality of kind of the system. So, you know, they're not forever friends. It is rare to have a brush, if you paint even a couple hours a week, it's rare to have a brush that will really last you more than a year, unless you're really diligent about taking care of it and you got lucky with it, obviously. Do I do the skull cap in leather? I don't think I want to. Not right now. I will do the boots. I'll do the boot wrappings in brown, though. So, you know, it just comes back to kind of like that stuff. This is a Series 7 Winsor Newton number 2. Most of the time when I'm painting, especially acrylics, that's the brush that I'll use. I use the 2 for just about everything. You can get a fine enough point on it that you can do most of your detail work with it. The only time where I switch out is if I need to go into like a really tight area. I'll go to like a 1, and very rarely will I go to a 0, but that's mostly just because the barrel of the brush, so this part, the barrel right here, is thinner, which makes it easier to navigate into tighter or more narrow spots. It really doesn't have anything to do with the brush control that I can get out of it. If you practice your brush control, what matters most is going to be the tip. So as long as you can keep a good tip on that, I mean, you can get really fine points, really, really good dots with a good tip. The barrel is going to give you more paint on your brush, which means that you're going to have to go back to the palette typically less often, which is great, especially when you're painting bigger areas. More paint on the brush means it dries out less quickly, which means that you're going to not have to run into like dry tips and stuff like that. So your paint's going to flow more smooth and more evenly. So there's just a ton of benefits to using a bigger brush, like a 2, as opposed to like a 000. And yes, the 000 can be great if you're really not confident in your brush control. But it's going to take you a long time to cover areas. You're going to have to go back to that palette a lot. You're going to have to clean out your brush a lot more. So it does kind of just, you know, compound on itself to the point that really my strong suggestion to you is to always look at a larger size brush and just get comfortable and confident with using it. And if you can do that, it'll be great. I'm going to go in here and just start blocking out some of my shadows. A little bit more water here. That more into like a wash. because my color's kind of soft here. Let's come back through and do that. Maybe get in here. 000 does me. It does really speak to the Afra. That's true. That's true. We are not talking about a murderous protocol. A droid and his counterpart, though. Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously one of the cool things we talked about with Shatterpoint is that characters that don't necessarily make sense in bigger mass action games like Legion, things like Afra and her little murder posse droids can slot in really easily because you just do them as a squad and you're good to go. And there are places where I think those guys would fit in other games, but it is very, very easy to identify cool characters and jump around different eras and stuff, obviously. As shown by the characters that we're painting right now, with our Inquisitors being a little cross-era action and all that stuff. Yeah, the Toto 360, it was actually added by our engineering team after the fact. So Dallas did some of the concepts, and then he had some discussions with the engineers, and through that they were like, we should do Toto and just add him as a little Easter egg, and it's not really going to hurt anything or make any difference. And so part of the benefit of working with a bunch of Star Wars and fanatics is that everyone kind of has their little piece of the lore that they love and the things they want to work in. And oftentimes they'll just kind of go the extra mile on their own and make it happen, and that's pretty cool. So, some fun little throw-ins there. All right, and then we're going to do a little highlighting on the cloak. Just going to pick up these edges here. Just real rough, real quick. Going for a bit more speed than we are precision. We can always come back in later and smooth everything out if we want to. Where this got a little dark. Now, one of the things that would be really fun to do, if I wanted to approach the leather differently, is I could come in and start doing a stipple and build up a lot of cool textures and stuff on the leather, make it feel very worn in. Because I do think we're getting more of a leather cloak than a cloth like Jedi robes, but that's probably okay since we are taking some liberties with this character. Flipping her sides, as it were, so that she'll fit in with our Anakin Obi-Wan clones. Or maybe, someday in the near future, she'll fit in great with some of our Galactic Civil War rebels. Sky's the limit when it comes to this stuff. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit more of this. I'm going to take some white, desaturate this. Desaturate a lot. It's more than I kind of wanted to go, but it's all right. Stuff in. Some really quick kind of like spot highlights here. And then we can come back through and hit it with a brown glaze once it's all dry and kind of pull it all back in together, but it's not too bad for some rough leather there. Mix in some of this. I think When we get done with that color, I'm going to come over here and grab some of that. Grab some of this. The golden yellow. Just a touch of that. And then let's try a little phthalo blue. A little bit too much to the blue side. It's not a bad gray though. Yeah, sure. Let's go. Let's get crazy. Let a little violet to it. I'm just going to play with my color until I find something that I like as kind of the undertone for my trousers. Yeah. That was me, add a little red to that. There we go. A bit more of that. All right, sure, why not? Let's go in and these trousers with a bit of this purplish brown. Which squads are my favorite to run? I've been playing, so my kids are big, they're big good guy fans. So I've been playing a lot of more canonical villains in our house. So if you watch the game stream that Plumber and I played like a month ago, I was running Dooku and Asajj with kind of just their out-of-the-box squads. And I've been doing a lot of that. I have, because I can cheat and get my fingies on things a little early, I have been subbing out some stuff to get the B2s in there. So I've been using Kraken and the B2s from the Grievous box. And I very much enjoyed adding those in. I gotta get my Grievous painted so I can start throwing him in on the action, but if I'm not playing with other people who want to run the clones, I actually really like swapping in a little Vader Jedi Hunter with my clones. Which takes a little bit of doing, or a little access to some things that you all haven't seen yet, to make a full-on clone squad given his SP costs. If you don't want to run the 501st with him, but I don't really mind running the 501st with him, so it's all cool. Yeah, it was one of the big things we were looking at when we created that character, based on the show stuff, is, we've seen a lot of media, a lot of comics and stuff where Vader has worked with the clones, and there's that longer transitionary period now. The Bad Batch covers it a lot, where the Empire is kind of transitioning out of the Galactic Republic and into the actual Empire, and they're decommissioning the clones, and they're moving towards what will be the Imperial Stormtrooper program. So Vader has run around with clone troopers before and doing some of his stuff, and kind of wanted to pay homage to that, have that be an option with this cross-era Vader, so that players could live those dreams if that was something that you really liked from one of the comics or whatever. Vader's Fist. That's a pretty solid name. I mean, if you're going to name it something, Vader's. My God, the soundproofing, Ann. It's like I'm 2 steps away from a full avalanche here. Terrifying.
It has been reported.
Let Jeremy know I still love him. but he's trying to kill me. Yeah, so I really like running Vader with my Republic forces. I do think it's fun to pair him with late Obi-Wan, but I think the smart money's on Luminara. Vader and Maul is a fun combo. Back through. I'm just going to use, my colors have kind of dried out. Some of that. I remember the very first Battlefront video game you got to play mostly as 501st and then transition over into the now not canonical clone story through the Galactic Rebellion. That was pretty fun, though. Pretty enjoyable. All right. Yeah, deck manipulation is absolutely very powerful, and one of those things where you talked about it before, but we went through, a lot of soul searching when we were working on Luminara. And Kalani, actually. Both those characters had kind of more impact on the order decks than they wound up with, and it was process of trial and elimination in terms of, how much impact could they have before it became egregious, and where did we want the philosophy of the game experience to sit? And then some things that seemed like they'd be good, and then they just weren't. So, a lot of lessons, which is fun. I mean, that's part of the enjoyable experience, and what we get to do in playtest is kind of figure out what works and what doesn't. And the real trick is to never get too attached to an idea, because sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. Hello, Durham, UK. I'm so glad you're up to join us. It's almost 10 o'clock where you are. I got my GMT right. Although we're in daylight savings time, and I know you guys do it different, so I can never keep too much track. I'm usually an hour off somehow. All right, just gonna finish out our cool, purplish pants. Not what I thought I was going to be doing when I came in here, but I kind of like it. Now, is this fun enough for you, Anne?
I love purple pants.
Great.
I'm wearing some today.
But are they fun?
Well.
Oh, all right, I see. I still have a ways to go. We're going to get to a point where I just give up and I start funfetting this girl. There's just going to be a lot of colored dots. I just want to make you happy. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Liz, our marketing director, Liz, was out for UK Games Expo, so she got to experience the launch excitement firsthand. I was jealous. It's all right. We had a little we had a little mini office soiree just to celebrate everything and watched everyone's excitement online and stuff. Wasn't as good as being there in person, but still fun. Still fun. Our delightful head of studio, Simone Elliott, got us all launch day posters, so everyone has a cool little memento of launch day. All right, this blue is going to take over the world, so I got to be really sparing with it. Yeah. That's what we want. Just the lightest kiss. The lightest kiss of blue. Then this black is going to be a lot. So, lightest kiss there. A little bit more. All right, I think that works. Let's go in and get that clone armor going. I don't actually know what that is supposed to be, so we're going to say that it's white. In our world, it's going to be white. Tomorrow. What is Dallas doing tomorrow?
I believe I saw that he was painting Shatterpoint bits and bobs.
Bits and bobs. Dallas will be painting Shatterpoint bits and bobs tomorrow. There you go. I think by bits and bobs, they mean all the cool little critters that come in the different boxes. So the Loth cat / Tuca, because, you know, if you don't come from Lothal, you're not a Loth cat, you're a Tuca. I learned that painfully. I was corrected many times by one Simone Elliott. And then he's got the Convor, and I believe he has a Gonk droid for tomorrow too. So if you're interested in learning how to paint some of that stuff, which a lot of lessons will apply to a lot of things, check it out, 1 p.m. Pacific. I believe next week he's got some MCP on tap though. So you have this weird control box on your back. We'll figure out what to do with that later. And then I want the gauntlets to be this color. I'm going to mimic all of the Jedi and their clone armors. I think I might do her head thing, her hat, her weird skull cap, white too, maybe. Go away, hair. So, yeah, white's a tough color, and there's a number of ways that very smart people approach it. The best advice I can give you is don't try to paint white. So you notice how I took my white and I immediately started mixing other colors into it. Because if you start looking at white in the world, you'll notice that white is not really white. In fact, for the most part, the only thing that defines white as white is the extreme highlights. So there's very little pure white, and most of it is just whatever the shadow color is. In this case, I decided to go with a blue for my shadow color, so I mixed in a little blue and a little black violet in there. And even that's a bit brighter than I probably would have started with, so we're going to have to mix a bit more shade, which is fine. But yeah, if you try to paint straight white, you're going to have a bad time, because white, especially in acrylics, is not a strong pigment. And it really struggles with stuff. So I'll let that dry a little bit. Let's go to our boots. I said I wasn't going to paint black, but I'm going to paint the boots black, and I'm okay with it. I like black boots. I think they just look the best. They kind of really nicely define the miniature from the base. And we'll add some color to them to make them not, you know, shiny tap shoes. But yeah, so when painting white, you know, pick your shadow color and then just work up from there. So you're always looking at starting from a gray. And, you know, the intensity of your final white will depend on how dark your gray is, but you can do blue grays and violets and green grays, all that stuff. It all works. From there, just add more white into your base mix, but you never actually get to pure white until the very end. And then at the very end, just go in and add some extreme highlights, some little specular highlights and stuff with your white. And that will be enough white to trick the eye into reading whatever it is white, even though the vast majority of it is not white. If you look at really like classic paintings, like old school, you know, major artist paintings, you'll see the exact same trick used. They don't ever paint white. They always paint an off-white, some kind of really desaturated color gray. And if you do that, you'll find that you have a lot more success. So you can find pre-mixed off-whites that work really well. One of my favorites from scale is Arctic Blue. I really like my whites to be cool for the most part. And Arctic Blue is a really nice desaturated blue-gray. And it has fairly decent coverage for as light as it is. And it's really easy to build up with more white. So that's the one that I usually lean to the most. But the opportunities are pretty endless. You know, like I said, you can use a really light lavender, gray, purple, and create some really cool shadows. Thinking in your color wheel and your color theory can also be helpful. Like, what other colors do you have going around? So I got this purple in the pants, so I did a little bit of violet into my white, and I probably want my shadows to have a bit more violet in them even, because that's going to tie everything in together with those pants, especially because white is typically reflective, so it's going to reflect whatever's around it. So, you know, just play. Like, give yourself the opportunity to kind of play around with your colors and see what you can come up with. Here we have this really nice desaturated kind of purple. Maybe just a little too dark still. Maybe come up to here. And then if our white is all taken care of, let's see, that's too wet. We can just come in here. And we can start hitting our shadows with it. We just kind of like feather out those shadows. And now we've got that darker kind of shade in there, or we could even go further with this if we wanted to. We'll just come in here, like where that armor comes in. Boop. Pull that shadow down. Just kind of blend it together. Blend it out. Right under where the head is, because there's going to be shadow there too. Blend it out, but don't be particularly concerned about how much white is actually there. The less white, maybe I just want to come in here. Maybe I just want to go really strong in the shadow. So we get a lot of that purple under there. And then, I don't know what this is, but there's little like things here and then under here. Gonna blend that out. Under here, blend that out. Yeah, pale gray, any kind of colored gray works great. Some other ways to do white if you don't want to like blend or build up is I use a kind of a multiple media technique that I've found that works really, really well and I really like, which is I'll use the airbrush, prime, like get a good base down of my kind of highlight white, whatever highest white I want to go into. Then I will take some acrylic washes. A lot of times I'll take like a black and a white like a contrast style kind of paint. I'll mix those together into a gray that I like, slap that on there to reestablish shadows, and then once that's dry, I'll go back in, take the airbrush again, and do really careful airbrush highlights. And then when that's dry, I'll finish out everything else. So I'll paint all of my like undersuits and whatever else I happen to need to do. Like if I have squad markings, if I'm doing like the 2/12 or whatever, I'll knock in all of that. And then when everything's done, I will go in with a really diluted ink wash. My God, Jeremy, again. He's just going to have to redo this whole thing by the time we're done because I'm talking apparently too loud for the integrity of this wall. But anyway, and then once everything is done, I will do an ink wash with oils. I'll do an oil wash, and I'll do the oil wash over the entire miniature. And then effectively, once that oil wash is kind of set up a little bit after about 10 minutes, I'll go through and effectively clean just about everything off using makeup sponges and Q-tips and all that other jazz. A little bit of mineral spirits to help really pull it up. Just leaving the barest tint, you know, some very basic glaze going on. And it just pulls everything together so nice. And it's a longer process, but it's one that I found works really, really well. And from a length of time to paint white, it's pretty minimal. So I very much enjoy it. And it's kind of been my go-to, especially on Shatterpoint clones. But this goes back to what we were talking about last week when we were doing some oil work on Fifth Brother, who, if you were here last week, I can show you how he dried. Because I know there were some questions about like how bright he was. So here is our Fifth Brother. I actually forgot this guy at work, so whatever. I didn't touch him afterwards, so this is literally after just an hour of us working on him with the oils. No touch-ups or anything. And overall, he turned out pretty nice for just 1 hour of work. That is the Grand Inquisitor. Grande Inquisitor. He's French. He likes fabulous baked breads and fine dining, small plates bold on flavor. More tapas, but still, you get the drift. I don't know why you're laughing at a man who loves his cuisine, Anne. All right, that's fine. You mean the conviction? I just believe. I believe that my man, Grande Inquisitore, loves his platters. Yeah, you know, he's okay with Tapas. He's okay with Tapas. That's what the Lesser Inquisitors always want for Galactic Dinner, but he doesn't like it because he feels like he pays more overall. Because the small plates just convince everybody that they need more than they actually need. And let's be honest, you don't get to be the Grand Inquisitor if you're just throwing money around willy-nilly. There's some serious budgeting considerations that go into that. We know. Yep, if you take either the fourth sister or the fifth brother, they are your supporting character slot. So you'll only get, you only get them. You don't get to like double dip or anything. The difference is that, they obviously do a whole lot more in terms of their abilities and everything. I'm having so much trouble here. This weird little water spot that I cannot get rid of. So let's just cover it back up and see where we go. So obviously that kind of goes into the fact that if you look at their abilities and everything, they are quite a bit more powerful. And another one just never stops. They're quite a bit more powerful than, say, the 501st Clone Troopers or whatever. Their charts are better. Their ability is usually stronger because they don't get to make 2 separate attacks. They only get 1. So whereas the more traditional supporting units can double dip on a character and roll 2 attacks, these characters only really get to roll 1. But it's typically, it's a more consistent, more reliable, potentially more valuable single attack. So it really comes down to what you as the player value most from that slot. And I really enjoy, Michael Plummer, lead developer for Star Wars Shatterpoint, for those who may not be aware. He worked really hard on the Inquisitors in general. We kind of mentioned how this whole Obi-Wan show wave was very, very secret. So a lot of the stuff had to be done behind closed doors. And we were so grateful to have the opportunity to work with LFL in that way, and wanted to prove to them that their trust in us was well placed. So he had a lot of reps in with the Inquisitors, and the final result for all of them, very much a product of his hard work and his playtesting consistently over and over again, and some of his innovation. Did a great job. And I really like what they offer, what the single supports offer to the game, and the fact that you do as a player get to make some pretty important choices with what kind of role do you want your supporting unit to take. I know Fifth Brother's all the rage right now, but you are giving up certain things when you take him over, say, some B2 battle droids. Because, yeah, he can cause the hurt, but B2 battle droids can cause more hurt with those double attacks. All right. And that's part of what's so fun in the place that we're at now, is we're going to start really seeing, I think, a lot of those list building options and opportunities that we in the studio have been playing with and working with and balancing around for a while, but you all at home have not quite experienced yet because of the recent release of the game and everything. And this is one of my favorite times, is just watching as folks come in and come through and start to figure out this stuff and put together their own solutions and ways of doing things. All right, so that's pretty good for the white. we need to do some more shading and shadows, and it probably needs a good glaze. We'll see if we get there, but I want to try to knock through everything else. He can definitely reach certain things based on how you and your opponent define your terrain setup and what is what element and what is not an element, all that stuff. So 100%, everything has pros and cons to it, and it should, right? Now, much like we talk about with our other skirmish game, MCP, the fact of the matter is that there is always going to be a power curve. The game's not perfectly balanced. It's not supposed to be. So you're going to have certain things that may fall slightly ahead of the curve or behind the curve. The goal from a development standpoint is to make sure that that curve is tight enough that player skill, opportunity, a bit of luck, all matters in a way that kind of balances out just the raw stats, the raw data. And of course, being smart as a player and combining certain things together will lead to greater chances for opportunities and all that stuff. So we'll leave that. We're just going to give her gloves, I think. I was thinking about maybe making those skin, but yeah, fifth brother can't split up either. You know, he can win ties on a single objective, but that has its limits. So unless you're investing a lot of force into his pushes or anything like that, you're not guaranteed the same kind of objective dominance that you might with two. But again, these are all kind of the things that you have to consider as you dive in and go through stuff. Okay, let's I'm gonna do the skull cap really quick, and then I promised yellow lightsabers, so we're gonna do yellow lightsabers. Quickly mix up kind of this. I'm just going to glaze the skull cap really quick. A little bit more paint. Just going to establish a really quick foundational color using a glaze. It won't look quite right compared to everything else we've done because we haven't really approached anything that way, but I just want to get that color down really quick. And then I want to use some red, some orange. Actually, I guess I'm using magenta and orange. I'm just going to create a really quick skin color that I think is fun. And it's going to really fast knock out a quick glaze over the face. So I think I want to build it up to orange, so we'll start with kind of this magenta-y red. And then once that's dry, we can build it back up. Okay, yellow sabers. So I'm going to take some white. I'm going to take some of my golden yellow. I'm going to mix that together pretty good. And we're just going to slap on this as our foundational layer. So one of the tricks that I found that works really well for painting lightsabers is identify the core color. So the center color that you want, basically the interior of the blade to be. And if you look at lightsabers, they're really weird, and this, I think, is part of what makes them so hard to paint. And Dallas had a fantastic video where he kind of explained his approach to painting lightsabers. So if you want to see them in all colors and how he does it, you can check it out. I use like similar philosophy, I guess, but I approach it in a slightly different way. Because I've been using a lot of transparent paints, which you can find pretty much anywhere. But the way that I use the transparent is I lay down the core color first. So for red sabers, I actually use orange. And I want the majority of the saber to be orange. Because if you look at classic sabers, that center core is like the brightest color, and then the exterior is the lightest color. And that's what makes them kind of difficult to paint, because you can't paint what's not there. And so the actual color of the saber would not be the plastic part. It would be the air around the plastic part. We can't paint that part. So what I do is I focus on my core color. If I'm doing a red saber, I'll do like bright orange. If I'm doing a blue saber, I'll typically go with like an off-white blue. Purple saber, I'll use a magenta or a pink. Green saber, I'll use a yellow. And then I take the transparent color, which I don't have here, so I'm going to kind of like fake it. But transparent colors work really well because they're transparent. So they're kind of like an ink wash, but they just stick better and they're quicker and easier to use. And I'll slap the transparent over the whole thing, and then with a clean, slightly damp brush, I'll go through, and wherever I want that center core to show, where I want the viewer to see it, the romance angle, I'll just clean off most of the transparent color around it. And as you pull that transparent color away, you get the tint, similar to using an oil wash in a way. You get the slightest tint, but you also have the dark on the edges and then the core showing. And it works out really, really great. But for this time, we're going to do a non-transparent ink approach. So I've laid down my core. I'm going to mix in more white into my yellow because I want that core to kind of be pretty white. And I'll just kind of knock in my colors here. And I'm not super precious with this, so you can do a full like white line if you want. Her head's kind of in the way, so we'll do this at a weird angle because I'm still in the gimbal. Normally I'd turn the whole mini over at this point. So I'll do front and back of the saber basically is where I always do my core. There's an argument to be said that you're always going to look at the miniature this way, so do it there. So do your core here. But usually when we take photos and stuff, or we pick up the mini to look at it, put it on the shelf, we're going to look at it from this view. So this is where I'll consider my core to be. Just using the edge of the brush, I'll build up my kind of center light source where I want it to be brightest. I usually avoid the very tips and closest to the hilt. It just kind of works up. And in this case, we're going to grab some fluorescent speed yellow. Shake it up really good. Duel is called You Cannot Run, Obi-Wan's first ability to run. Yeah, because Vader says you cannot run when Obi-Wan tries to run. It's like poetry, except it doesn't rhyme. It's just dialogue. Shh, Anne, I don't want to hear it. All right, so we're going to pull some of this fluorescent yellow. Now, one of the tricks to fluorescents is they don't cover very well. And by very well, I mean really at all. So you do want to mix them in with a different color. In this case, I'm just going to use the golden yellow that's on my palette. And we're just going to thin that out. And we're going to go over our saber blade. And with any luck, Anne will be like, "That's electric." Don't placate me. It actually has to work. And then as that dries, we'll come back in and just kind of reestablish our white line. And as the fluorescent dries, it's going to become more transparent. So you could just wait kind of for it to finish its stuff. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to kind of do a little pre-mixing on the blade itself. so there is kind of the yellow saber. What?
I was trying to support you, call and response.
I mean, I appreciate it, but it only works if it's true. So hopefully this reads really well. I mean, it's fluorescents are kind of cool in the fact that usually when you get them on camera, they just do things that they do not do to the eye because of how they reflect light and how the camera picks it up. So I'm hoping that that's coming through really well. Even in person, though, we definitely have a very yellow saber. And then if you didn't want it to be like pure yellow like this, you could easily go back through and use a little bit of like orange ink and dull it back down. So it just depends on the level that you want for your color. Just really quickly going to do a couple of these little items. And knock out some very fast detail work in our golds, which are not Chimera colors, for the record. This is Vallejo Viking Gold. I like this as a base, and then I would go through and do a quick wash and everything. Hit that little button. Little button. Whatever that thing is. Weird sci-fi gribble. Maybe this back panel here. Maybe this whole thing is supposed to be not white. It's supposed to be, gold. I don't know. Whatever this weird backpack thing is. It's where she puts her saber. I know, you don't. Shh. We're just playing the mystery game. I get it. It's her helicopter pack. I understand. Do that. Oh, and then I want to go back to this color because I didn't do these. I should have done her little weird tentacles. Her little tentacle hair locks and her neck. You can knock all this stuff out at the same time. And build that through and be somewhat careful as we come in here. And then we can mix up a really quick highlight to that face color if we want. And just hit the brows and the nose, some of the cheekbones. And maybe get those tentacles a little bit too. Back of the neck. And even more yellow, maybe a little white. Shaboop. Out those facial features that really matter. And go back in and do a little bit of blending those out just to smooth them. And because we got a little bit on our white here, smooth that back out. And then real quick, we'll just do the saber in gold. Boop, 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 boop. just so we can finish all the little elements, and then all it is after this is just a lot of refinement. Just kind of come back through and make everything work the way we want. Definitely do some glazing and some ink washes on the metals, finish those out, all that good stuff. But we can just get this little saber hilt painted. Kind of like that. We have ourselves a very good tabletop quality mini. Oh, let's do these little shoulder icons really quick. We'll just knock those out in a very flat red. And again, we're kind of to that refinement stage where everything's got color on it. And now you get to spend that extra hour or 2 hours or however long you want just picking out all the details in the way that you like best. And for me, that's the part of the process that I get lost in, and it becomes very zen, very relaxing. It's the thing that I love to do after a long day of work. If I get the opportunity and don't have kids to get somewhere. All right. So there we go. So here is our approximately 1 hour fourth sister flipped to be a Jedi Knight Inquisitor. We'll come up with a better term, but you know. So yeah, a lot of refinement left to do. Definitely have some more stuff to do on the skull cap because we kind of didn't touch that. There's some glazing and washing that I want to do on the belt, the metals, and all that stuff. But really all that stuff is optional at this point. This mini is more than ready for the tabletop minus the base. So it's all up to you. So get to kind of go from there. So with that, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had fun. Hope you learned something, were inspired to do something. Just watch me mess around on the palette. Maybe you want to get your own wet palette and start mixing your own colors. Especially on Shatterpoint, it's great because you only have to do it once. You never have to come back to it again. So it's a lot of fun, very freeing. Be sure to tune in tomorrow, Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific for Dallas Kemp. He's going to be painting some Shatterpoint bits and bobs, mostly critters, maybe a couple other surprise things. You can always come back next Wednesday. We're going to be doing some more hobbying, 1 p.m. Pacific. And next Tuesday, actually, I'll be here too, on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific. Why not? I'll show up for it. Maybe you will too. We're going to be doing, I guess I can't say. We're going to be doing something cool next week. Till next time, I've been Will. You've been great. We'll see you on the next one. Be good to each other, and goodbye.